You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. You're looking at a view of Force 13 HQ. Software has failed us yet again this evening. Clearly some new software will be required in its place. Shocking, actually, if you ask me. It has been a few seconds late, so now it will play, hopefully. Shocking to use David's verbiage from earlier. This is Force 13 Live, and we are currently tracking several systems. You know, the technology here completely went to pot. Not the first time that's ever happened. And now the visual part isn't working so well either. You won't be able to see me by the looks of things. Oh well, at least we can take a look at our Discord team this evening, consisting of David and Mike. Good evening, both.
Good evening, Nathan. And here we are once again with Typhoon Maria, the remnants of Beryl, Chris, and least of importance is 92W over there in the rest back.
We were watching very closely in the run-up to the beginning of our show tonight. It was very, very close indeed. Hit and miss, I believe, in whether Chris was going to be designated a hurricane or not. I actually think it should have been. The National Hurricane Center hasn't gone with it. They've kept it at 70 miles per hour with a pressure of 996 millibars. They expect hurricane status will, of course, occur imminently. In fact, we were so prepared for it, it says Hurricane Chris at the bottom. That is not true. It is still a tropical storm. We have typhoon warnings in effect for Miyakojima in Japan, as well as significant parts of northern Taiwan this evening, finally in full force, and an orange typhoon warning in effect for parts of China. There's two provinces that I forget the names of along the coast there. Fujian is the southernmost one, and I think it was Zhejiang or something to that effect. There you can see all the typhoon warnings at the bottom of your screen in Taiwan right now. Nantou, Keelung, Yilan, Hsinchu, Taoyuan, Taichung, Taipei, Hualien, and Miaoli, perhaps. Pronunciations are not going to be our strong suit tonight. We'll do our best. David, where would you like to begin?
I think we'll have a look at the satellite imagery of the life of Maria.
Another look at. We were looking at that yesterday.
Yeah, well, let's see.
Or at least fast forward us a little bit to its first peak, for instance, maybe. Would be nice.
And she's still maintaining her 30 nautical mile radius eye The latest from the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has it 187 nautical miles south-southeast of Kadena Air Force Base.
What you will see
Tracking,
shortly is that it isn't looking very good anymore.
yeah, tracking west-northwest at 16 knots. And the satellite infrared imagery depicts gradual weakening of deep convection with a, as mentioned, 30 nautical mile eye, which provides confidence in the current position. And recent microwave imagery indicates concentric rings indicative of the ongoing eye wall replacement cycle. Now, I think
Really?
has the, well, that's what they're saying. The intensity is assessed at 115 knots based on the VORAC current intensity estimate of 6 or 115 knots and a SATCON estimate of 112 knots. The upper level analysis indicates near radial outflow. However, poleward outflow has weakened over the past 24 hours. Additionally, sea surface temperature values have cooled slightly. It's still, 28, 29. Yeah. And a significant decrease in ocean heat content values. Maria is currently tracking west-northwest along an extension of the deep layered subtropical ridge, which is located to the northeast. The Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has the position which has changed to the forecast philosophy. And the 34-knot wind radii, apology, I probably haven't got that right, were adjusted slightly over the northern semicircle to align with a recent ASCAD image in Okinawa's surface observation data.
David, I just want to bring to the viewers the latest National Hurricane Center forecast cone for Chris. This has just been released. Just in case you were wondering what the latest was, there it is. It's now a pretty clear trajectory towards the northeast. They expect the stalling will stop very soon, and then off towards the northeast as a hurricane they're expecting for a good 48-hour period, turning post-tropical because of those cold sea surface temperatures further north, and then into Newfoundland by the looks of things. Nova Scotia still has a significant chance of storm conditions though, and it wouldn't surprise me if maybe it went slightly north of that cone.
So how soon do we say it'll be a hurricane?
Well, it's looking very close indeed. Let's see if we can take a little look at Chris right now. It might take a little moment or two actually. Okay, maybe here. There it is. This is the latest visible imagery of Chris in the last few hours, looking very hurricane-like. The National Hurricane Center don't think so yet. The advisory that came out there amidst all of confusion was 70 miles per hour and a pressure of 996. I'll put forward the latest from the National Hurricane Center there, what they're saying really, if that is at all possible for me. So it is, according to them, their positioning is ever so slightly different to ours. At the beginning of the stream you saw there 191 miles southeast of Cape Lookout, 204 miles south-southeast of Cape Hatteras, and 235 miles southeast of Wilmington. And the main threat at the minute is swells and surf along the coast of North Carolina. You can see indeed how close it is. At this junction, yes, go ahead.
Asking, do you know the wave height near the eye wall in the eye?
Of which storm?
Maria.
David? You're more likely to know than me.
Wave height. Where are we?
I'll just have a little look.
Wave height is 42 feet. I think it's down 2 feet from when I last looked at it, which was last night. I think I mentioned 44. So it is down to 42, but an eye wall replacement is still maintaining that 30 nautical mile eye. And what the other item, Maria, was the forward speed of her.
We're looking at imagery of Maria right now. If you look carefully towards the top left hand side of your screen there, you can see some of the islands. Miyakojima is the one just outside of Maria's first band. That is the only island so far under a typhoon warning or its equivalent in Japan. Just off, almost off screen there, partially cut off the screen on the left hand side, you can see Ishigaki Shima as well. The precursor opening band is just about to reach that island as well. Things are going to really start picking up over there in the next few hours. Just pan upwards a little bit. There you can see Okinawa really starting to get hit by that first, the outer band. So it's getting very close to affecting these land areas now. We've been looking at it for days to see how strong it would be by the time it gets there. I think they'll be getting off slightly, ever so slightly more lightly than I originally thought, because it didn't appear as though Maria had anything at all stopping it from intensifying or at least maintaining its intensity, but the sea surface temperature drop-off that happened in the wake of Typhoon Prapiroon last week has had a bigger effect on Maria than we first thought, and as a result it's weakened to now a minimal category 4. Still a very strong typhoon, that is, with winds of 130 miles an hour. It's dropped 2 levels on the CDPS scale. It was a stage 8, it's now down to a stage 6. Still a serious situation, and still something to take very seriously indeed if you're in any of those warning zones.
Expected to re-strengthen or continue to downgrade?
Well, it's very interesting that the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has pretty much given up on Maria, saying that it's a downward trend from here. I wouldn't be so sure, because if you look again at the model consensus here, if there is one, what they all do agree on is sea surface temperatures are going to rise again briefly before before the nearest approach to Taiwan and its eventual landfall in China. And actually, at least 2 of those models there, the CTCX and the GFS, and the HWRF just a nudge, predicts just a little bit of strengthening. But the Joint Typhoon Warning Center aren't having any of it. They're saying it's going to weaken from here on in with no chance of re-intensification. I wouldn't be so sure to make that statement at all.
Nathan, I think they will adjust their position. Just looking at one of the NOAA flighters, which I've got on the screen, sea surface temperature, even towards, let's say, the northeastern tip of Taiwan, is still 30. Then you look to the mainland China,
it's not 30.
28.
It's not 30, it's 27 or 28 off the tip of Taiwan.
Oh, yeah, so it's still healthy.
Well, in the sense that it's the same as it is right now, and it clearly isn't doing much for the storm.
So,
although I do wonder, you look at that imagery again there, whether it's leveled out in that, whether it's plateaued in its intensity again, and maybe, you know, I don't see any obvious signs that it's weakened in the last 3 or 4 frames there. What do you think?
Actually, if you look at the eye, a west-northwest track.
Well, that is quite clear, isn't it? And if it continues on that trajectory, it will pass just north of Taiwan, as the models and the predictions have been saying. There you've got the Joint Typhoon Warning Centers, the JMA's track map. There's the Central Weather Bureau of Taiwan, their track map. They're pretty much in agreement all along, and so are the models. It's pretty much assured what's going to happen now. Tropical storm force winds are guaranteed in most of northern Taiwan. Typhoon warnings are pretty much guaranteed for the northern tip of Taiwan. Major typhoon conditions category 3 or above could happen there as well, and those Japanese islands. I just want to bring to the viewers just a quick look at a few of the other models for the other storms. Somewhere, here it is. This is for Chris. This was the latest here. Most models predict some intensification, gradual intensification up to category 1 status. HMON still putting its neck out at category 2, and that's a category 2 landfall by the looks of things in Newfoundland perhaps. That would be something. I doubt it. But you can also see that wind shear is going to go through the roof very soon on all of those model projections, so it could well be extratropical by then. Sea surface temperatures as well are going to be iffy, I should think. It really depends on the track forecast as well. Just a slight deviation to the north of the forecast could mean much cooler sea surface temperatures. And relative humidity down at the bottom right there actually sinking a little bit. So it may have a little bit of a fight in the next 12 to 24 hours. I wouldn't expect any rapid intensification. I wouldn't expect a GERT, for instance. But nothing's impossible, is it? And just a quick look. I don't know if this is relevant anymore. One of them is current, actually, for Beryl. But they're not really saying much on that at all. 50% chance of regeneration, by the way, in the next 5 days, and a 10% chance in the next 48 hours.
We expect Chris to reach category 2 intensity.
The National Hurricane Center came out with their update just a few moments ago. The last update had 85 miles an hour, and I'm just seeing this for the first time myself as well. They're actually going with 90 miles an hour for the peak now. So category 2 is certainly possible.
I personally think it's possible.
Yes. Well, the way it's looking right now, I think it's going to be a real point of contention in the next few hours as to whether it is a hurricane or not. David, what do you think?
I think, well, let's have a look at one flying up on Chris.
We're looking at some imagery now, but are you showing yours too? Now what?
Yes,
I'm not
on
going
the
to show what
flyer,
I'm not going to show what you're showing because that is not current.
It isn't.
No.
Oh, right.
They don't have floaters in the Atlantic anymore, David.
I know. Well, you're looking at the GAIS 16, aren't you? The satellite imagery. Yes, he's looking very healthy, so I reckon later today, hurricane status. Or how soon for tropical storm? Am I right to put it
is still a tropical storm. 70 miles an hour on the cusp of hurricane status. We've just put out a poll on Force 13's community page if you want to get involved on whether you think Chris is a hurricane at the moment or not. We'll get your results as time goes on, and that'll be an interesting one to see.
Certainly think most will say yes, it is a hurricane, because in a way pretty obvious.
I'm not sure. Well, it isn't clearly because NHC say no. I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Do we have any recon flight information?
Yes, we do. Recon have been in the storm, and that is pretty much what the National Hurricane Center are using to base this opinion. Well, that's where we are right now. That is Tropical Storm Chris. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, do send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and it will light up for us. I don't think we had any just yet, so I guess now is a decent time to properly introduce Mike. And I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself. This is your first live stream with us, and why you decided you wanted to take part in hopefully our fantastic coverage.
Well, I could say this. I mean, I've been watching your streams since the 2016 Atlantic hurricane season. I thought, wow, people, because no one that I talked to, I'm like, wow, I finally found people I can express, about my interest in. And I thought, wow, yes, and I just love broadcasting as well.
How interesting. Why was the moment right now whilst Chris is active, and is there anything that's interested you about this particular situation that we're looking at right now?
I wouldn't say too much. I mean, I've been wanting to become a part of your stream for a while now. I really thought I found your Discord, so I was like, oh, maybe I can try. Now I can try.
And if anyone does want to add my personal account on Discord, that can also be arranged. It's Fool13 at extension 9094. That is a personal account. You can also add Force13 on Skype for Tropical Weather Chat when we're not on the air. In the meantime, you can always send in your Facebook. You can join our Facebook group and look at our page, and you can follow us on Twitter, of course, under the name Force13. Let's just do a review, an overlook again of the warnings that are currently in effect, and we'll just leave that imagery up there from David whilst we do that. The warnings, let me just go one by one here. Looking at Japan right now, the warnings are as follows, and I wonder if it's changed actually. Just bear with me here. Yes, it has. This is news here. Typhoon warnings have now been issued for Ishigaki. I mean, it was to be expected, but that has now actually happened. Typhoon warning in effect for Ishigaki, which is the island further west of Miyako and is the second main island from Taiwan. So those typhoon warnings spreading, and that will probably continue. Also, there are gale advisories in Okinawa, in Kagoshima, and also further west of Ishigaki in those remaining islands. In Taiwan, we have a sea and land typhoon warning, and I'm just trying to get those names up again, and we are going to make a complete disaster of these pronunciations not being Taiwanese. But the land warning area includes Nantao County, Keelung, Yilan County, New Taipei City, Hsinchu County, Hsinchu City, Taoyuan City, Taichung City, Taipei City, Hualien County, and Miaoli County. And also that there is an extremely heavy rain advisory for about half of those areas as well, and a heavy rain advisory for almost all of the island too. In China, there is an orange typhoon warning for 2 of those provinces, the ones along the coast. They're expecting, as we are, expecting landfall somewhere in between the cities of Fuzhou and Wenzhou. The threat to Shanghai is low. There's the orange typhoon warning at the bottom of your screen. Northern Fujian and southern Zhejiang provinces of China.
There was a question.
Uh-oh.
There's a question. I don't know if it's really... I don't know. It's I'll just read it. This is Maryland House. Sorry if I'm
No, I
pronouncing that
saw
wrong.
it. It's a terrible question.
I was like, this doesn't look like a proper question.
You can read it, but it's going to be a silly answer for a silly question.
Do you think Beryl will become another Harvey? Simple answer, no.
I don't know what it is that makes people think that every single storm that forms is going to be comparable to Harvey.
We're going to compare, what was it? They were comparing her mean to, this.
Say again.
There was this person who was, I remember when I was watching one of your live streams, one of the questions were,
No.
do you think her mean is going to become another Katrina? And I was like,
No, what? That was back in
No.
2016, was it? David, anything for us right now? We're just looking at some more satellite imagery of Maria as it draws ever closer to those islands right now.
Just following on from those warnings that you provided, just looking at the JMA website warnings, the islands Okinawa, they have the red warning, and Amami.
Yes, they do have a red warning for something else, I gather. I'm not sure what.
Wave height.
For the waves, so surf and
yeah,
rip
high
current.
waves. Yep, and they've got 2 yellow and red warnings in place. So they have advisories. The yellow is advisory, the red is a warning.
Yep.
And Nathan, whilst we're on Japan, I just want to bring to the viewers that when I provided the news reader flash of flooding over in some areas of Japan, the overall scene has worsened. I cited a report earlier that the death toll is now over 100. Many missing due to the rain event that they've had over there.
Yeah, that was nothing to do with Maria. That occurred about
That's true.
a few days before. Well,
Yep.
It was when Maria was first forming. It was a frontal system as far as I saw, and it was delivering a huge amount of rain over the same areas, and it's very rare that you see emergency weather warnings get issued in Japan, but that did happen in a few of their provinces.
I should also
Do you
mention...
think Beryl will be another Beryl of 2012? That is an amusing question. Well, you never know with the way it's going. Go ahead, David.
I should mention that aviation flights have also been affected by Maria. Many cancellations.
How many cancellations?
No doubt. What was that?
yeah, how many cancellations?
Oh, I've got no idea, but there'll be many that have been cancelled due to the effects from the typhoon. And I've just cited an image on Twitter, Nathan, the angry sea off Okinawa.
What do you mean
And
by
as
that?
I said, well, it's very rough, but the JTWC said 42 feet waves, but I don't know. Yeah, wave height, that's right. I don't know how far that wave height would extend out from the centre.
And if you're looking at the storm now, and you may remember what we were looking at last night and the previous night, it is much weaker. The eye wall is certainly less powerful. Only very small areas of that convection, you know, the black areas that were so abundant yesterday. The eye's still there. That's the same eye that we were looking at yesterday. But the rest of it, not looking as good, but it still packs some punch right now. And I do think, you know, it is holding on right now. I don't think it's losing any more of its intensity right now. What do you think?
I still reckon that Maria is, well, 9:15, 9:22 range.
Really? Well, of course, the Japan Meteorological Agency going with 9:35, JTWC 9:37, and Taiwan, David, you've been monitoring, is it still 9:15?
6 UTC.
Well, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling down, Nathan.
Okay, well, we'll wait for you to scroll down. Well, that's the latest on Maria.
Got it.
Let's see if we can actually, let's see if we've got, is it a little bit early? I'll just check to see if any visible imagery has arrived yet. Whilst we wait for that, let's see what David has for us. There's some water vapor imagery. That's another one that we haven't shown yet. And it shows you there that dry air hasn't really been an issue, if you were wondering.
True.
In case you were wondering, it hasn't been the dry air. Hasn't been wind shear, which has been at 2 knots today. And it's the SSTs, it's the sea surface temperatures predominantly.
Nathan, the Taiwan Met Office, they haven't got any pressure on their forward. They've got 920, but
Right.
that's the 9th of July. But from the 9th onwards, they just don't have any pressure.
I see.
It's just
They don't. Well, it's probably because I don't know. Actually, it's not because it's inland, because it isn't. Maybe they're just you know, putting their hands up, saying we don't know how strong this is going to be. That's a confusing one. Or maybe they just
that is very confusing.
They
What
made
was the
an error.
JMA saying? They
go and have a look.
Mhm.
I don't have it here right now.
No, I don't just.
Whilst we wait for that, I can show you what is one of the first visible images of Maria this morning. You can just about make out its eye and its relation to the islands. And this is as of half an hour ago. And we'll obviously get a better look at the storm in the next hour or so.
They have it 9:35, so 9:35, 9:40, 9:45, 9:96 on the 11th at 18 UTC.
Obviously.
And well, they have it weakening, but if it clears the northern tip of Taiwan, the land interaction will be less of a influence.
Who knows? I was just reading some comments whilst you were saying that, so I didn't really hear.
No, I was just saying that land interaction with
Yeah.
Taiwan would be less of a.
Oh, well, it depends what context you're talking about there, because obviously it will have some impact. I think the land interaction with Taiwan is inevitable at this point. So I think it will, you know, it's got until it gets to. I mean, how long is it until its closest approach to Taiwan now? Something like 24 hours.
Yes.
So it's got about 24 hours left of strengthening time, if it does any at all, and then it's going to go. It's going to go. JTWC disagree. They think it's going to be on a weakening trend all the way, and I think that is quite a dangerous assumption to make. I think that intensification is still possible. May not happen in the end, but you know, you can't tell me that it's not happened before.
Nathan, a joint typhoon warning center looks like it's doing 3-hourly charts, and I've got one on the screen for you.
So that's a position update, and they've done an update for 9 p.m. UTC. And it's moved a little bit more than that as well as of 10 p.m. UTC. You can see that little green triangle is where they say it is at that last frame. And that would be at about, let's see, 23, zoom back in, 23.6 or so.
I believe there.
About 23.7 degrees north. And it's right on, what degree east is that going to be? 128.
24 north.
128 east, I believe that is.
Yeah, 128, Nathan.
So that is half an hour ago, according to their update. But right now it's at 23.7, which is the same, and 127.7. So it's moved another 0.3 west in the last half hour alone. Interesting how it's moved due west in that time if you use the JTWC's numbers. Obviously that is just a little jog, but it could make all the difference to whether one location in Taiwan might get only tropical storm force winds or whether they get typhoon force winds. But this is the latest, and if you've got any more questions for us whilst we're on the air, I'm not sure how long we're going to be here for. We may just call it quits after an hour, I'm not sure. But due to our technical malfunctions, as usual, I don't know. But there we go. But that is the latest. Let's just have a look, another look, see if we can see on infrared now what Chris looks like. Might just be a moment on this. Here it is. And again, once you get that full array of frames, you should be able to see a discernible pattern, an eye beginning to appear. And I wonder how that affects what people are thinking, whether Chris is a hurricane or not. I can actually tell you right now, it's 74% yes. And you can also,
I'm not surprised.
You can also join in the voting on our community tab on our YouTube channel page. And that will obviously remain up afterwards, but it will become irrelevant in about 6 hours because Chris will probably be a hurricane then. But a very interesting cross-section there of viewers. 74% yes, 26% no. Why do hurricanes go through eye wall replacement cycles? Would anyone like to answer that?
I'm unable to answer that one.
Well, it is an interesting phenomenon. I don't know if there is a single answer as to why they do go through the eye wall replacement cycles. Either it just, you know, I don't know. I mean, quite often land interaction can force an eye wall replacement cycle, or whether it's just a collapse of the eye wall that occurs, and sometimes the reformation can take quite a while. But it has been a feature in storms forever. And the timing of an eye wall replacement cycle can be quite noticeable as well. I suppose when a storm develops a new eye, the shape of it can change as well. For instance, if storms are growing larger, it's more likely to have an eye wall replacement cycle if it grows in significant size, especially the typhoons. We saw it just with Maria. Maria had the pinhole eye that it had when I thought it was looking its best, and then it went and had that eye wall replacement cycle as it was, and that, I don't know which caused the other, but coinciding with that eye wall replacement was its big growth in size. Ocean heat content is too low to support a major typhoon, according to one commenter. Well, who knows about that? I mean, Ophelia, anyone? Category 3 with no ocean heat content? Or even warm sea surface temperatures. Not comparing Maria to Ophelia in any way, though. It certainly isn't that kind of storm. But these things can happen. What it reminded me of today when we were looking at Maria was Talim of last year. A slightly different location, but Talim was further north at a later time of year, so I suppose it is quite comparable in the East China Sea. And it's just, it completely got, the convection just waned and waned and waned and got blown away by decreasing sea surface temperatures, and it was hardly a shell of what it was, but the eye was still in a good shape and still going. Not looking as bad as Talim did just yet, but it has been losing a lot of its gusto recently. Still a category 4 though, 130 miles an hour, and I think it's just hot. Yeah, it's just along that periphery, that boundary between category 3 and 4. So, as we say, there are two things that we're looking at this evening: Maria and Chris. There are still no warnings out yet for Chris. I don't know whether that will change soon. If we just look back again at the forecast from the National Hurricane Centre, it's around 3 days away from affecting Nova Scotia at its closest approach. Not a huge wind field either, it has to be said. It is a high-end stage 3 on the CDPS though. And actually the difference was a tropical storm and hurricane. If it was a hurricane right now, it would become a stage 4 because of its stationary movement. Adds a lot of points to that.
I have to say the wind field of Chris, big, but what is exactly the wind extent?
I did have the numbers just before. I don't know if David could get them for me, or maybe I could now. In fact, yes. The wind field right now, the gale force wind field is 60 nautical miles in all directions. So, you know, it's not huge, but it's it's twice as big as Beryl, at least.
Beryl was unbelievably small, the wind extent.
It's just unbelievable.
I've seen, if not the smallest.
Certainly in the smallest 3, I think it was. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was very close. But if you've just joined us, that's Chris right now. Do you think it's a hurricane or not? Since we started showing these graphics, more people have been voting yes in our poll. So people think, I think on the infrared view, a lot of people saying yes. Let's see what everyone else is saying on that. The Lazy Kids said it clearly has an eye or an eye-like structure and is very well defined. I wouldn't go that far. That Canadian Manectrix says yes, it looks like it has developed an eye and it's already a really strong tropical storm. Killer X30582 says no, because the Weather Channel says so. How interesting. Clorox Bleach IP says yes, because I heard that Chris already entered the hurricane condition. Not quite officially. Azael Tovar says yes, and that there was an update just now. Matthew Hoban says no, the pressure seems too high. Riley Idala says yes, because Recon found 73 knot flight level winds, and with the normal 90% of that at the surface you get 65 knots. Well, that's open to interpretation. Norway Tracking says no, and Soverlace says yes, my radar showing it forming into a hurricane category 1. Well, that's an interesting, diverse set of opinions from the viewers right now. If you've got any questions for us whilst we're on the air, do start your message with Force 13 in the chat section whilst we look at both of these storms. If you're wondering about any particular locations in the path of either Chris or Maria, then we're more than happy to give personalized forecasts as long as we have the information to make that call for you. But in the meantime, we're looking at now 2 storms with 2 eyes. David, anything for me?
Nathan, airport webcams on Twitters just put out a posting with First Light Naha Airport on Okinawa is beneath the outer bands of the typhoon. The eye is less than 300 miles south.
Hello?
System heading
Just a minute.
west. Latest METAR has 48 kilometres or 48 knot gusts increasing. At least half of Tuesday flights have been cancelled.
We're now joined by Daniel. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
You're joining us also from here in the UK. Have you been looking at all at Chris and Maria?
Not lately, no.
Ah, I'll get back to you. There's some more questions here.
Many
Kirby
questions.
Shader has interesting comments about the eyewall replacement cycle and how it's, you know, there is no rhyme and reasoning about it particularly. Tropical Cyclone 100 wants to know our favourite hurricane name, which is a very
Quite a few.
interesting question. Daniel, this naming list has got a few. In fact, you were a tropical storm in the Eastern Pacific not so long ago.
I was, yes. I didn't last. I don't think I even lasted a week.
No,
No.
we've not had a David in a very long time, and
No.
we've not had a Mike for a very long time either. But we do have Michael coming up this year in the Atlantic. That's the M name if we get that far. And Mike, do you think we will get that far?
Yes, but I personally think it won't become anything big because it's going to be a week, like you and everyone else has said, it's going to be a weak season. Somehow it does, Michael, to become anything more. I could be wrong. It could be another bad one. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
I don't think anything more than a 1. And it might be, sorry. The chances of it hitting land are very slim. I think it's just gonna west, then curve north, and then fall apart. There's like a tropical depression.
Yep. A question: if a storm does $1 billion in damage, will it be retired? These days, I'd probably say yes. Not a guarantee. They don't use one particular criteria for it. We're only going to be here until the end of this hour because, well, because there's a lot going on, I suppose, and we'll also be doing more updates over this evening. And David, you're showing us the chances of hurricane conditions from Chris.
Yes, so we're looking at the what is it? Hurricane force winds, wind speed probabilities, and no doubt that this will change. So I think the NHC will upgrade it to hurricane status later on today or evening US time.
And could you also show us the tropical storm force wind probabilities there? I think that's important to show as well.
Oh, look at it.
Yep. So again, if you're looking on the east coast of the United States there, fairly low chances. And decreasing as well. You may remember in last night's update, I think it was, it had Nantucket at 26%. Now it looks like, well, it's in the less than 10% band there. So the chance to the US of tropical, the threat for tropical storm conditions appears to have completely diminished for the US East Coast. Atlantic Canada, though, is still going to cop it here. although it may well, probably will be extratropical by then, because the July waters are much cooler than, say, the September waters in the Atlantic, and so it's going to really struggle to still be tropical by the time it gets there, but you can see its trajectory there in the next 5 days.
And Nova Scotia, what we looked at yesterday, tropical cyclone, that area in grey, tropical cyclone, tropical storm. Tropical storm Chris currently off the Carolina coast is expected to remain somewhat stationary, becoming more organised today. By Tuesday, it is forecast to start moving in a northeastward direction, gaining strength as it does. By late Tuesday, it's forecast to attain hurricane status. At this time, if it appears this storm could approach Nova Scotia by Thursday, likely weakening slightly as it does so.
Indeed,
But,
and go ahead.
Good. Sorry, Nathan. They're saying that there's a great deal of uncertainty at this point in time. That was Monday at 11:50 a.m. ADT.
Brian's channel says, do you agree that it will not hit land and reach extratropical status? Not both of them. I agree that it will hit extratropical status before hitting land, as the National Hurricane Center have prescribed in their update. And a lot of people want to know about questions going down the line of what our favorite hurricanes are, and what was the most interesting or fun to track. Does anyone want to comment?
What were the ones? Harvey, Matthew, and what were the two before that?
Well, we've done quite a lot of streams, David. We've been doing them since 2015. I mean, very interesting times that we had in 2015 when it was one massive typhoon after another. That's something that I'll remember for quite some time. The Hurricane Matthew streams that we did were an immense show of coverage and delivering the coverage. We think we did a good job, the best job that we've done during that, and we hope that we can continue to bring that into our streams today and beyond, indeed. What else have we got? I think very much the same kinds of questions. Do you think that there will be a storm in the near future which will top the $125 billion caused by Harvey and Katrina? Well, you know, as long as the world is getting richer, that will continue to happen, yes. Something will obviously beat it if inflation continues to rise. So to reiterate, yep.
Go on.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate what all the warnings are. If you've just joined us and that you didn't see the latest, the warnings do now cover Ishigaki, typhoon warning for that island as well as Miyako-jima. There are gale advisories for Kagoshima, including Amami and Okinawa, and also for the island of Yonaguni. In Taiwan, a typhoon warning is in effect for the following locations, and I think it's actually been added. A typhoon warning has also been issued for, I think, Changhua County was one that we didn't have on the list before, and Yunlin County. I believe those are two new ones, but to give you the whole picture, it is for Nantao County, Keelung. Just a minute for the others here. I was just getting the graphics up. Nantao County, Keelung, Yilan County, Changhua County, New Taipei City, Hsinchu County, Hsinchu City, Taoyuan City, Taichung City, Taipei City, Hualien County, Miaoli County, and Yunlin County all now have typhoon warnings. And a lot of those places also have extremely heavy rain advisories as well. Obviously.
Comment saying, do you think Beryl will reform in the Sargasso Sea?
Well, who knows? 50% chance in the next 5 days. The National Hurricane Center clearly don't know either, because they can't commit towards 0 or towards 100. So it's going to be a close one. But, you know, it may not be so ironic or so satirical for that person earlier on in the stream who said that it may do a bit of a Beryl of 2012. It might happen that way, who knows. Question here: why are tropical cyclones becoming less common but far more intense? That is actually not the case. When we're not tracking storms live, we also do a lot of archive data, and I wonder if I could, if we're going down this line, whether I could show you a little image here. I'm not sure if we can do it whilst we're streaming. I will do my best, but it might be interesting for the viewers to have a look. Okay, we're able to see part of it. This is a chart that Force 13 created in the last 50 years, showing how many storms of what intensity had formed up to 2017. Last year it was 87, and in all those previous years it's up and down, but generally you've got a decent line. The average is actually I think slightly more than that at about 91, but tropical cyclone numbers are certainly not declining, well, maybe ever so slightly, but certainly not enough to establish a trend. Curious question, that one, at the end of this stream, but that is pretty much all we have time for now. So David, any closing comments for us?
Nathan, I just have on the screen
Painting the picture for us as well. Yes, thank you.
The heavy rainfall on Taiwan, the warning area.
Yep, so you can see the illustration there on where those warnings are in Taiwan. Those are all the rain warnings. Now, a lot of those counties should have a red typhoon outline, but at the moment it's not appearing for some reason. Usually they have the red outline for a typhoon warning, but it is in effect for a lot of those counties.
Could you, sorry to go back to Chris, of these satellite loop and see what people think? Because if you look in the last two frames, you could definitely see that an eye is forming.
Oh, no doubt about it. We're into the wrong window now.
Definite indication that it's strengthening. No,
certainly, and I agree. I think they should have gone with 75 miles an hour, but who am I to say that? But most of the viewers agree with us. At the end of this, we're now up to 81% saying yes, Chris is a hurricane, even if the National Hurricane Center haven't designated it as such. That is quite a lot, because usually our viewers side with the officials, but they're actually going against the grain. 81% of you saying that Chris is a hurricane. Very interesting. And there is the latest imagery of it. Mike, anything you'd like to say as well before we finish here? Giving you the opportunity now. Maybe he's vanished off the face of the earth there? I don't know. Can't hear you anyway. And Daniel, how about you?
Pardon?
Well, how about you? What are your final words? We're finishing up here. Have you been paying attention?
I have a bit.
Well, we're going to see who gets the class clown mantle. Is it Daniel or is it Marcel? Oh dear,
Not
oh dear.
me. Please.
Sorry?
Please, not me.
Well,
Just my thought on Chris.
sorry. Yeah,
Live.
go ahead. I think you're glitching up on us, Mike, I'm
This
afraid.
live stream we're talking.
Try again.
Dang it. Just my thoughts on next live stream. I think next live stream we'll be talking not about Tropical Storm Chris, but definitely Hurricane Chris by the time we go on next time.
I think so. At the end of that hour, the poll has 80% of people thinking that Chris is a hurricane. Well, that's it from us for now. We'll see you again very soon indeed, I'm sure, as Maria draws ever closer to that landfall, wherever it might be. Will it hit one of those Japanese islands? It doesn't really matter that much if it does, because its effects will still be very severe on all of those southernmost Japanese islands as it draws ever nearer. Again, if you can see those islands on your map there, yep, you just got a glimpse. Maria is heading closer to them and is going to pass through late on today. We'll have updates as and whenever we can, on both of these systems as they progress. We'll be live again tomorrow night. That's all for now. Good night, and we'll see you again soon.
Good night.
Alright, bye.